Hello, hello, and welcome back, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We're starting our wellness panel now. So we've got Carla, Mark, and Craig. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll really just jump in. So I'll just give a little summary and then we're going to intro you guys and then we'll jump into the panel. All righty. So this panel of wellness entrepreneurs and coaches are helping countless people to improve their mental, physical, and spiritual health. You'll leave this transformative talk with the knowledge to optimize your energy and power across mind, body, and spirit. We've got Carla Brizuela Perez. Hopefully, I said that right. She's a pioneering first generation Filipino Malaysian licensed clinical social worker. She founded the Filipina Social Worker to provide culturally responsive and trauma informed care. With over 14 years of experience, she specializes in psychosocial assessment, diagnoses, and case management, particularly in medical social work and psychotherapy. She's adept in cognitive behavioral therapy, working with children, transitional age, youth, adults, and individuals facing various challenges, including HIV/AIDS, chronic illness, gender, sexual identity issues, spousal and partner abuse, and family trauma. Her academic interests include the intersectionality of Asian American studies, feminist theory, and LGBTQI+ affirmative therapy. She earned her MSW from USC and a BA in women's study with a minor in philosophy from CSULB. Thanks, Carla, for being here. And then next we've got Craig Bruce. Craig is a powerhouse in high performance lifestyle consulting and founder of Evolve Health and Lifestyle, with 25 years in global management consulting and a track record of guiding executives to success without sacrificing well being. His journey began when burnout forced him to rethink everything, leading him to pioneer a science based approach to balancing peak performance with personal fulfillment. Certified through the Health Institute and a top graduate of Equinox's Elite TRX program, Craig combines deep wellness expertise with firsthand experience, equipping leaders to break free from relentless productivity and achieve sustainable success on their own terms. And with his new book, The Fulfillment Revolution, hitting shelves in just a week or two, or very soon, Craig is ready to inspire a transformative shift in how we think about success. Thank you, Craig, for being here. And then we have Mark Longwith. Mark is a dynamic entrepreneur and founder of Evolved Entrepreneur, a thriving community built on resilience, growth, and authentic connection. With a background that spans 20 years in the Las Vegas nightlife scene as a sommelier, Mark has a talent for connecting with people from all walks of life. He's a former professional MMA competitor and co-founder of the Top Brew Pub in downtown Las Vegas, who has since consulted for billion-dollar companies and collaborated with elite athletes and Michelin-starred chefs. Amid the pandemic's upheaval, Mark pivoted boldly, building a global brand while embracing the digital nomad life, living in over a dozen countries. Having exited 2 seven-figure brands, Mark is a master of reinvention, promising to share invaluable lessons from his roller coaster journey, delivered with humility, grit, and hard-won insights. Yay, thank you all for being here. We've got our superstar panel. And I think, Maria, you're on. I guess we didn't get the deck up. We had a deck with you guys in your pictures, but that's all good. And just to kickstart the panel, I'd love to ask you what inspired you guys to pursue a career in wellness, and how has your journey shaped your approach to mind, body, and spirit alignment? Whoever wants to go first, maybe I'll give it to Carla.
Thanks. Yes, my journey started when I was young and I was raised by a single mother. I was living in the Philippines. I was born in the Philippines and just seeing my mom struggle just because she was a single parent. And then immigrating here to the US when I was 6, seeing that shift with regards to just learning just being in a new environment, learning the cultural norms and just seeing my lived experience. I knew I wanted to help people like my mom and like my little self, because it just felt very much like I was like people, I think we thrive in community. And at the time, it didn't feel like there was much of a community. And so I knew I wanted a career in the helping profession, whatever that looked like. And at the time, um, very typical stereotype Asian American dream. I was going to be an attorney. I was going to go to law school, and that was my goal. And so I actually did go to law school. I attended for a year, and I realized this is not for me. This is no diss to my attorneys. We need you all out there too. But just was not for me. And then it was through that career path that I met social workers and I found out what they did. I had no idea what they did. And then it kind of opened the door to a path of like, okay, this is something I think that aligns with who I am as a person and also my values, my professional, and my personal goals. And then so from there, I pivoted and then I went to grad school. And that kind of led me into a career in social work. And at first, I started in community based mental health. I did school based mental health, and then I did medical social work. And then COVID hit, and I had to pivot because I could not be in the hospitals in person. And so I decided to pursue my passion of having my own private practice. And so that's what led me here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Craig, if you want to share.
sure. Hey, first of all, it's what an honor to be on this amazing panel. I mean, just listening to those bios was very inspiring. And Carla, I'm glad you made the shift to social work because we've got enough attorneys. We need more social workers like you working on mental health, education, LGBTQ plus issues. So thank you for that work. Thank you for that work that you do. Sophia, my journey began out of necessity. I imagine this. Imagine you're boarding your return flight home and it's been a 15-hour day and you've got at least another 3 hours before your head hits the pillow and you get settled into your window seat and the flight attendant approaches you and you think she's going to ask you what you want to drink. And instead she leans over and in not so polite a voice says to you, "You look horrible." And it was in that moment that I turned and I stared at my reflection in that little tiny airplane window, and tears just started welling up. And I just said to myself, "Craig, your life sucks." But to the outside world, I was the picture of success. I had everything that the outside world had would define as successful: career, title, homes, cars, everything. And yet I was empty. And all those achievements were hollow. And the next day, my doctor ordered bed rest. I was so sick. And my version of bed rest was my laptop, my cell phone, and conference calls from my bed. Sounds pretty ridiculous, doesn't it? It's okay. You can laugh. I laugh at it now. It was in that moment that I realized that, like many of my clients, my current lifestyle had become my new normal and it was killing me. And something had to change. And what had to change is I had to begin to prioritize me while I was continuing to focus on my success. And that's where I went on this journey, research. I went back to school, science-based behaviors for health and wellness, and I transformed my life. And then I left the management consulting field. That was 10 years ago, and I've never looked back.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for letting me share it. It's easier to share it now than clearly, 10 years ago when I was right in the throes of it.
Hopefully. And Mark?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you. One, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here. I'm truly grateful. And honestly, Craig, we need more vulnerable men. So thank you for being vulnerable, man.
Yeah.
It's crucial to the up level of our consciousness right now. So thank
Yeah.
you very much. I kind of was born into this. So my family was pretty interesting. My mom was super Christian, but my dad was really into spirituality. So they cast my natal chart the day I was like the week I was born. So astrology, crystal ball, palmistry, tarot cards, all the stuff on my dad's side. They got divorced. My mom went super hyper Christian. I read Melody Beattie's Codependent No More when I was 8. No, that sounds really weird, right? But it was just kind of like I just was really interested in this, and then I kind of got that spiritual and then this emotional side of things. And as I moved through life, I got into martial arts. It was just a big part of my identity and who I was, and it really had the mind, body, spirit components that we think of, and it just brought me together to be a more whole person. And really, it imposed the physical. Like I fought professional MMA. That's a very violent physical thing, and it developed me quite a bit while I was going through the food and beverage industry in Las Vegas. And I just took some notes because I'm trying to pick out the highlights. And I remember I was working at the brew pub and I was asked by a friend to consult for Station Casinos, which was owned by the Fertitas, still is. And so I started doing some consulting for them. I'm thinking like, oh, there's nothing wrong with your business. It's the people. So I realized that this whole time, this SOPs and these things were not the problem. It was the human itself. So I really found this desire to help. I'd coached fighters in the past, and that was kind of what moved me into the coaching space, is just helping people grow beyond their limitations. And it's it's been very powerful. So I pivoted and just left everything behind, sold my business, left the industry, and I wound up moving down to Del Mar, California, and kind of had a healing journey down there. Very great place to heal, by the way.
Yeah.
And I pivoted, and right away I started coaching Michelin star chefs because that's what I knew. And I was helping them break away from their corporate to open their own space. And when I did that, I just started again to just see this flow of watching people step into their power. And as I can't tell you how it happened, but somehow I was able to hold this really strong masculine space. And what wound up happening is I was more of a model to men on what true masculinity could look like if you really can show up with love and kindness and hold space for the feminine. And then the other side was I found myself like I was telling Sophia, I did all this masculine marketing and I tried to attract men and I wound up attracting all women. And the reason being, I think, is because we need more men to hold masculine space so this feminine can flourish. Because I think that's kind of where the society is going. I think if we can have healthy masculine and feminine flourish in today's society, I think that's very powerful. I don't know if that was exactly the question, Sophia, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it was. Those are all
Okay.
amazing
Okay.
stories. Thank you for sharing. And I think everyone here can probably relate to some piece of everyone's story, whether it's going in one direction in your career and it's you don't want to do it like being a lawyer or a consultant, and you usually have some kind of realization to push you towards maybe a higher purpose. For everyone listening, the reason I'm so passionate about this panel is because it's so important to entrepreneurship. So even if you look at Silicon Valley, the tech leaders, everyone's really getting into the space of energy, wellness, mind, body, spirit, because you need that. Because being a leader, an entrepreneur, there's so much pressure, there's so much chaos. You have to take care of yourself. And so also for everyone, I know a lot of you were here earlier on our other panels, so please feel free to drop questions in the chat throughout. We'll definitely address them. Anything from mind, body, spirit. So we're going to go into some interesting topics. But what I want to ask you guys next is, I think that when you go from, say, consulting or being a lawyer, I know, Mark, you're a little different. You grew up with the spirituality, but do you think that it was almost a spark of spirit that drove you towards, okay, I need to do wellness, and starting to pay more attention to that and integrate that more into your life?
I mean, I can see kind of like, oh no, Craig, you go. I'll go
Please
next.
go. Yeah, I will say, so the short answer is yes. For me, it was getting clear on what my values are. And one of those values is connection to source. That's what that for me, that's spirituality. And so when I got very clear during my, I guess I would consider it rehab from being addicted to success, because it truly is an addiction. Physiologically, it is an addiction. And so many of my clients, I see it with all my clients, right? They're all addicted to that success. And yet, when I found that, when I got very clear about what were my top values, and that connection to source was at the very top, that's when I began to realize that the life that I'm living, while it's an amazing life, is not aligned with my values. It's not aligned with ultimately what became my purpose, which is to to empower high performing business leaders like me 10 years ago to realize that you can continue to achieve at that high level and you don't have to make sacrifices in your health and your wellness and your relationships, which we all make. So yes, it was that awakening, and then the alignment to my values, which really sparked the what I would consider the spirituality aspect of it.
Love that. Carla, do you mind if I go or would you like to go? Okay. I want to just play off of that a little bit because, something that pretty much in complete alignment there is realizing that for all the entrepreneurs is when you start to chase something that's greater than yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's mind blowing what can happen in your life. And I wrote a couple of things down. One is anybody can grind for 6 months, maybe even 6 years. But what's the long term health on that? And we're grinding for 60 years. We want to change the world. We want to make it a better place. And the last thing I put is just what's the quality of your relationships? I've worked with billionaires who they're like, I stepped on every person I could to get where I go. My daughter and my son don't talk to me. I
Right.
am rich as hell and I have nothing that's worthwhile. And what I just wrote down was for me, believe it or not, Sophie, it was a culmination. It's like God or universe or source was just chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping. And what's crazy is I would call it a spark, but now that I look back, it was happening the whole time. So any entrepreneur out there thinking you're in the darkest of the places, like you're moving forward, just not at the pace that you like. And I do believe, and Sophia's actually taught me a lot on this already, is just the ability to change your vibration quickly. And those things can come to reality faster. But the problem with that is sometimes you're not ready. So for me, it took years of chipping. And I will say I conquered some things at 45, which is the age I am right now, that I struggled with for about 40 years, maybe even, since I was born. And so it's mind blowing. But if I had to say a spark, I would say, yeah, it like all comes together at one time. If you ever bought a house and that like last week of the house when they're building it, it's like, oh, it's all coming together now. But it really took that whole time. So that's kind of my take on it.
Thanks for sharing that. I can you rephrase that question again? I'm sorry.
Just, if you feel like your transition towards that field, which for you would be like the social work, psychology, was a spark of spirit in a way,
Okay.
like an awakening.
Yeah, because I was like, I think I'm going to answer it, and it's not going to be in line with what our other speakers have shared. No, it was not. I went into, I viewed spirituality in sync with religion, and I grew up with religion, but not necessarily spirituality. And so I did not feel like it was a higher purpose for me. It felt like it was just, okay, I knew I wanted to help people. This kind of aligns with what my values are. But I viewed spirituality in the realm of religion. And so I kept it in the church, in the temple, it's in a space. It's not within me. It's I'm gonna go there and then I'm gonna, do my ritual and then I'm gonna go back to being, myself. It was throughout this journey. I like to think I'm a little bit in the younger side with regards to my spiritual awakening. That like I'm opening myself up to this, the masculine and the feminine, and just all the energy that is around us. And yeah, so I feel like I'm leaning into it and learning more about it and diving deeper into my spirituality and also being able to incorporate it within my practice. And yeah, I think it's when you look back at things in hindsight, it's 2020, right? It makes sense. But when I was in it, no, I did not view any of this. I just was like very tunnel vision, one day at a time. I'm gonna just get through this. So yes, it was not in my purview, but there's a greater calling that I have no idea. I have no divine understanding because I'm not divine.
You are divine, but I know
But you know what
absolutely
I mean.
everyone here is. Yes, I do. I know we were chatting before, so anyone listening, we did have, you guys maybe noticed this panel's a little different. So Mark and Craig, thank you so much for popping on last minute. So we had Christian before, who's actually my therapist, and he's also in the spiritual realm. So we had a pre-discussion with Carla, and we were going into this and how but maybe even though it didn't start that way for you, that it started to like now you're starting to progress there because you're seeing a lot of your patients maybe needing that type of support. And so through that, you're kind of opening up to accepting that a bit more and integrating that into your practice. Yeah. I don't know if you want, we'll just leave it there. But if you want to add anything to that, like, have you seen anything, in terms of like, is that difficult for you if you're still relating that to religion, like having patients maybe come with, things like spirits? Because so just so the audience knows too, is that was actually really difficult for me. So growing up, I was very in tune with the energies or seeing beings, and I was very scared to ever say that to a therapist, because you're scared that they're going to think I'm insane, they're going to put me in mental hospital. But I do think things are changing now. And like I mentioned, I was able to find a therapist that fit me that was in the spiritual realm. But yeah, how have you seen that, in your practice progressing? Do you think everything's going in that direction?
I do. Well, I would like to think that there's more therapists like myself who are like-minded in that way that are open to it, because I do think a lot of therapy is very rooted in a Western, uh, heteronormative, white male viewpoint. And that is just how mental health has been interpreted and like understood as evidence. And I'm here, and a lot of my colleagues who work in the marginalized corners of, therapy, we're here to kind of break that and to try to, incorporate our practices as well. Again, within, the limits and the ethics of our field, but holding space and safety for the client. And I think, it's unfortunate because I do hear a lot of stories from my clients who've had experiences like yours, Sophia, where it just felt unsafe to share anything. And like safety is I think that's the most important thing in any relationship, but especially in the therapeutic alliance. Like if you do not have that safety and trust, then why are you in therapy? That's just a waste of your time and resources. So yeah, I do like to think that there's a movement of therapists and like-minded individuals who want to incorporate that that space within therapy. Again, it's like meeting the client where they're at. We're not going to incorporate it if it's something that we know we're not, the client does not feel like open about it. But if the client feels like they want to share that, then that's great. Because I think a lot of us are a little bit more attuned with it than maybe in the past.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, Carla, I'm curious because so I had a previous business and we worked with holistic practitioners and helping them build online businesses. And so I had quite a few therapists come to me for business advice. And
Mhm.
I built businesses and they wound up moving more into the coaching space because there was more freedom from the restrictions. And I'm curious, like, it's ob sorry, I don't know what's going on with my
Wow.
computer.
I'm
I
Wow.
think I think if you do like I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to do that
I
again.
wish mine did that. Yeah.
But I'm just curious. Like I've watched these amazing therapists, decade, 2 decades in the industry, say we're just like I'm done. I'm not even gonna. I'm just gonna go into the coaching space. But I feel like there's a value in all of the work and effort and things you put towards it. Even me being a coach, I don't like the fact that like a lot of people just they get some certificate and they think they can coach. So how do you see that developing over the next couple of decades? Like I know it's a really interesting analogy, but if you watch golf, you see like Live just is kind of coming out and everyone's moving from PGA. Like, do you think there'll be some sort of new board or because you really do have this interesting set of restrictions and I know many therapists are like, I wish I could do dot dot dot.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, there's pockets of us, there's groups, and that's how we kind of get together is like we form our like Facebook groups or groups within, these therapy spaces, um, where we do talk about that and we incorporate it. But again, it is rooted in the safety of the client. Because sometimes, yeah, I think like with regards to different type of modalities, there are modalities that are, like hypnoses, things like that. You still have to have training in that. And again, there are people out there who are seeking that. Um, there are certain very black or white ground like rules in whichever profession we're in where you cannot do certain things. But I think there also leaves a lot of like wiggle room depending on what the client is looking for and what interventions they're looking for, and with regards to what, the therapist can provide. Because I know like I a lot of, you know, you started in the astrological game like right from the start. So you are light years ahead, but I have a lot of clients and that are very attuned with that. And I'm still learning about that. And is astrological, like, is that something that we learned in school? No. But I'm gonna go with where my client, that's their belief, and we're gonna go with that. I'm not gonna try to steer.
Would your solution then be that like I'm okay within the confines of my ecosystem and maybe I would outsource some pieces and be like, I can't necessarily touch that, but go see hypnosis or go see and then come
Yes.
back and then let's use my expertise to discuss that further. Or do you see more of like a complete revolution and maybe we change the ways? I'm curious because there's also happening in the straight medical field with doctors as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, one of the movements that's going on right now too is ketamine. I'm not, but I know
Totally.
there is a lot of therapists out there that are incorporating it, working with, medical doctors. So again, you could resource it out and refer out, which I know I've done. Or if you are very interested in it, I think that like since it is incorporating, drugs, you have to follow a certain rule, or I don't know
Totally.
what's going on. But
It's beautiful medicine though.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's proven helpful.
Sophia, by the way, is this what you want or am I hijacking? So just let me know because I can just wait for questions to keep my mouth shut and
Okay.
just sit here. I don't know if you want this or
Yeah, either way, I have
okay, okay.
questions, but if
Okay.
we can go, maybe we'll bring it back to like entrepreneurship a bit more.
Yep.
But yeah, so my next question would be, it's hard to choose the wellness space as your business because running a business, you're already giving so much to people, to your clients, to your team, building. And then when you add on the extra layer of service that is your business, you get so drained. So my question is, what are your practical mindfulness tips for any entrepreneur to use to, make sure that they're okay in their mind, body, soul, especially when they're super busy? Like maybe you guys can share top three easy practices.
I can go if you, all right, I'll go. So I do something called a bowing routine. I'm just going to share this one thing because it takes me 8 minutes and it changes the life of so many people I've worked with. And so it's just everybody can look up a sun salutation to child's pose in yoga. And so the first sun salutation to child's pose, and I do this in the morning. It's like a nice little stretch too. And I put my head on the ground and I do these breaths and everything. But I'm just releasing anything that doesn't serve me. And if I don't have anything to release, I just surrender to my higher power. And I'm just like, I'm just here. Show me where to go. Show me what to do. Then I get up and I kind of move out of that negative space. I play a little slow kind of meditation music. I do a second one in child's pose. And from there, I'm just expressing gratitude. Like I've done these all over the world. So like when I have like a cool mat or like carpet, I'm like, thank you. I have carpet on my knees, like anything, like I'm just grateful for whatever. And that's really powerful because when you step into the vibration of gratitude, it's amazing how just your whole perspective changes. And then the last one is I do these 5 sun salutations and each one I'm filling myself up with what I want to show up with in my life for that day. And then I set an intention for the day. And the cool part about that is when I'm really going through it and I'm super grinding, like I'm building a project or a campaign or a launch, I can do that 2, 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, and it really resets me. And it takes 8 minutes. And I love that because I saw a great TikTok where the guy was like, my perfect morning routine is 4 hours. But if I'm busy, I can do this, this, and this, and it takes me 24 minutes, and I get my body, my meditation, and so it was really cool, right? It's like I can do 100 jumping jacks, 100 burpees, I can meditate this long, and so it's just knowing that your life is not always going to be this perfect thing where you can just do this beautiful 2, 3 hour walking, grounding barefoot, and knowing that I have this tool to go to that's like a go to. So that's just my opinion on that.
Love it.
Carla, you want to go? Keep in mind that the clients that I'm coaching are these high performing business leaders, executives, and um, the first thing they tend to want to do is to pick up their phone and check email. I mean, I think everybody tends to do that. Uh, and so what I have found is that, and part of the coaching that I do is really to create a morning ritual. And I don't use the word routine for obvious reasons. Ritual is a bit more, I think, spiritual and sacred than routine. And we get very clear, we get it on their calendar. And there are 4 or 5 science-based behaviors that tell us that if you'll do these, that you will set your morning up and your day up for success. And here's what they are. So, Mark, I think gratitude is an important piece of that. So the first thing I do in the morning is before I get out of bed, I ask myself 3 questions. And there's actually 3.5 here. There's a double question. The first one is who am I going to be and how I'm going to show up today? The second is what do I need to get done today to move me closer to my goals? And I've actually figured that out the night before. And the third is, for what am I grateful? That's habit number 1. And there's all kinds of science behind why those questions are powerful and will set you up for success. The second habit is drink water. There's all kinds of science that says we get hydrated during the night. We're all mouth breathers, majority of us, et cetera, right? And most of us, depending on whether you're male or female, we're 2/3 water. Brain fog, all those kinds of things. That's the second habit. The third, and I'm blessed that I live in Southern California, that I can do this. I get out, and my dogs actually force me to do this. I get outside, get some morning sunlight, walk around barefoot, grounded, right? Again, all kinds of science. And then the fourth is just some kind of movement. That literally can take you 15 minutes, maybe even less, and that will begin to set you up for success for the whole day.
I agree with all of you, especially Craig. You took my answers.
We'll share.
Joking. But yes, I was going to say definitely just movement, whatever that looks like. I
Yep.
know a lot of my clients, a lot of us, we work on a desk or sitting or standing or whatever, just getting out of there. Again, going outside in nature, just being outside, getting that vitamin D. Just to take a break from the monotony of, the daily grind, the daily hustle, whatever that looks like. Another thing I do like to incorporate, and this is just whenever you have the time, is incorporating box breathing. Again, the inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, and then releasing through your mouth for 4 seconds. And I do that like all the time, whenever in between sessions or when I'm driving and I'm feeling very stressed out or overwhelmed. Another thing is also journaling. Journaling is not limited to you need to write a breakdown of what you did today, the lessons you learned. It could just be a thought that you had, and I'm going to write it on this post-it because I need to get it out. Just doing these actionable things to get whatever it is out of your head and onto paper or out in the world. And another thing that I could not, that I definitely needed, and I know there was no way I could be healing without it, is my community. And I use my friends, I use my family, and I don't say use in a sense of using, but I know that when I feel very overwhelmed, I tend to isolate, and and then the feelings of loneliness and like no one can understand me, I'm alone. It just gets louder and louder. So when I'm out, even if I don't feel like it, if I'm out getting a coffee with a friend or just out doing errands with someone, at least it helps remind me that I'm not alone in this.
Can I add a
Yeah.
hack?
Mhm.
because I know y'all are going to agree with this. I know Craig's gonna be like totally is none of that works if we don't have a solid evening routine and go to bed at the right time. It's crazy. I tell you, your morning routine starts
100%.
the night before because if you just
Absolutely.
go to bed at the right time, you'll do all that stuff. If not, it just doesn't happen. And by the way, I
Totally.
love that community comment. And I just want to share with the men out there. I've been learning to be really vulnerable lately, and it's not easy for me and to allow myself to receive and ask for help. And I'm just gonna be honest, it sucks. It's really hard because I'm always the giver, I'm always the provider. And it's been very humbling, but man, has it been cool to have some people to lean on. So thank you for sharing that, Carla.
Yeah, Mark,
Yeah.
I love your evening ritual because it is I mean, sleep is so undervalued. And I will actually say my evening ritual starts in the afternoon, preparing for the evening, right? By not drinking caffeine late in the day and those kinds of things and setting up just some pause time, some me time in the afternoon. So I love that. I also love the vulnerability piece. I mean, as men, we have been told all our lives to suck it up, don't be a crybaby. And men are in pain. Men are in pain, and we need each other. And when you create, I'm in a couple of men's groups, and when you create an environment where men feel safe, and they will share, they will get vulnerable, and it's powerful.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Wow. All really great tips for sure. For me, I also, as an entrepreneur, I started out as that person. It's like, oh, I have this 2 hour morning routine. And I was waking up extra early until I realized I don't have the time. I'm so drained. So I did have to adopt my practice over time to figure out, okay, what's the most efficient way for me to still maintain this. And whoever was on yesterday, you guys heard in my mini quantum workshop. So I do that exercise to ground, activate, get into a higher energy frequency. And then for me at nighttime, I repeat those affirmations into my subconscious, including what I'm grateful for. So it's a mixture of that so that I'm brainwashing myself with that as I go to sleep. And then the first thing when I wake up, I do the exact same thing. So I'll still lay there for about 10 minutes and then program for the day. And then kind of come out. I have my matcha latte I make, and then I'll do my little meditation. And if I have time, I love to journal. I agree with everyone. Journaling is huge. It's a great way to get energy out, which is what you want to do every morning, every night. You just want to release any energy. And another little fun practice, which I do, and it's actually changed a lot because since we're all energetic beings, we're constantly have cords to one another. So if you had a full day, you're meeting with clients, you feel heavy energy, setting an intention is pretty powerful. You can just say, I cut all energetic cords that have attached to me today that are not of my own. I sweep away any negative energies that are lowering my vibration, and I replenish it with a higher vibrational light. And that's simple. And just by voicing it, imprinting that into the quantum field, can be really powerful. But I want to piggyback off of what Carla was going into about community. So my next question is, what role does community have in achieving your overall wellness? Because definitely the entrepreneurial journey is so lonely. And how do you guys encourage people to build supportive wellness communities?
I can give an opinion on community as far as being an entrepreneur in general. I don't know if it's going to be about the wellness side as much as it's going to be about the ability to actually be successful. And so, what I've noticed is this: anyone here has come from a school background, which is extremely structured, a corporate background, which is extremely structured. And then you break off into this space and you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. And we all think that's so cool. And what I've learned is that for me, I needed structure. And so the way I really created structure for myself, and this goes back to the community piece, is my first level of structure was my clients. So I don't care if you have to work for people for free. Like get some clients because they're going to hold you accountable and they're going to create structure in your life. And then from there, get a team. Start with a VA and have to be responsible to be there for that VA and give them instruction, and more structure now is created. So now you're kind of compiling this responsibility on yourself. And then as that grows and your team grows and your client base grows, you have now back to what you know, which is I have to show up for these people. I have this to build. These people are looking for my guidance. And then from there, I think it's the community we're talking about is just being around like-minded people that are going in the same direction on the same frequency, which I think is very important, right? Because we got some entrepreneurs out there. I know some killer hedge fund guys that are just like chop your head off and go to the club at the end of the night and doing drugs and partying. And then you have these entrepreneurs that are like just super grounded, like Sophia, and just want to drop into the quantum and make the world a better place and just find what fits you. Because what I was thinking about too, Sophia, that you said about what worked for you in your morning routine was everyone on this panel is unique. We've got to find what actually fits us, not what some guru said or what this community member thinks is a good community. And so for me, I couldn't find a community that I liked, so I built my own. I literally built a community, and so that was more fitting for me. And I created and I attracted the people I want to be around. So I hope that that helps a little bit.
Definitely.
I've coached hundreds of high performing business leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs over the last 10 years. And there are three pillars that I have found, and I've actually built it into a framework that I introduce in my book, uh, that are instrumental in moving you forward and living a more fulfilled life. Community is one of those. The other two are consciousness. A lot of people think of it as mindset. I think it's something um, deeper. And the third is lifestyle. So we've got consciousness, lifestyle, and community. So for me, it's critical. And community for me is the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with others, and the relationship that you have with your career. And you've got to get very clear about those relationships. And the key to those relationships is boundaries, or as I like to call, terms of engagement, because as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, we suck at setting boundaries. And I have found that is really a key area within community that we really have to focus on in order for people to be able to live the life that they want to live, a more fulfilled life, a more purposeful life, a more whatever kind of life that is. So for me, community is critical.
Yes, I agree with all of you. And I do think the healing and that community starts within yourself. And so healing yourself, what that looks like, and being surrounded with people who do have, the same or who have similar values as you, or can help guide you to, a path that you want to be on. And so for me, community, like, again, it could be people in your day to day. One of the things that was helpful for me was I personally got my own lifestyle coach to get me grounded with regards to my entrepreneurial journey, because again, the the biggest obstacle I had was myself. And so it was my own negative thoughts, my negative thinking, and I needed to be held accountable. And so I needed someone to kind of, again, be my coach and keep me accountable for the goals that I was setting, and also help set boundaries with regards to, you know, um, my capacity. And so, yeah, I definitely needed my community to get me to where I'm at.
Amazing. Yeah. I feel like a theme everyone's saying is find the people that you're connected to as well. And I think that is so vital. Bring it back to what we said in the beginning, where I know a lot of people go to therapists and then they'll be like, oh, that didn't work out for me. Maybe they try again. They're like, that didn't work out for me. And that's always unfortunate. But it's like you have to kind of keep trying. It's kind of like going after a lead. And you have to keep just knowing that someone is out there that is completely aligned with you and you can get that help. So don't give up. So yeah, I love that. And kind of sidestepping, but going into more the body. So, nutrition obviously plays a huge role and it's all connected to the mind and the spirit. What nutrition tips do you guys have for entrepreneurs? Because same thing, there's so much information out there. I went down that tunnel where at some point, like so many supplements and powders that you're kind of just like, wait, this is too much. You need to find what works for you. But yeah, are there any that you have found to be extremely efficient, that you highly recommend that makes people better high performers?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one, at least to start it off. Nutrition, food is medicine. Bottom line, what you put in your body is data. Food is data. Think about it, right? Food is data, and our body responds to what we put in our body. And I find that most people aren't really even doing the basics. You know, they think they've got to take all these supplements when in reality, they're not hydrated enough. That's first and foremost where I tend to start. And again, just based on the science. And then it's really focusing on what are whole, non-processed foods. So making sure you're getting enough protein, getting enough complex carbs, veggies, right? Healthy fats, beginning to eliminate the sugar, which is addictive and spikes our blood sugar and causes all kinds of roller coaster spikes. And so that's where I tend to start is just making sure that people are hydrated, and then working toward whole foods. Right? What's a whole food? Well, whole foods don't have they don't have ingredient list. You know, you look at the list and it's basically the food. Um, so that's where I tend to start.
I love what you said about food being data. That's a really
It
awesome
is.
way to think about
It
that.
is.
Yeah.
Food's data.
That your body stores. Yeah.
Yep.
hmm We're like an operating system.
We
So,
are completely very
yeah.
complex. And you know, our body will, and I know these guys know, I'm sure they'll agree, our body will heal itself. Our body is amazing. Our body will heal itself if we'll just get out of the way.
Yeah. Powerful. Love it. Carla, you want to?
Um, I agree with with just basic hydration, making sure that, we're hydrated because yeah, usually we are not. And I guess as far as nutrition goes, I always um ask clients and also myself, like, what is your relationship with food? Um, and just I think that kind of like opens up a lot of doors. Um, and so that's usually where I start. And as far as like nutrition goes, I am not the best person to ask for that. And so I usually will like, I always do refer out to clients to nutritionists or registered dietitians or, um, people who are more well versed with that. But yes, but hydration is very important. And also exploring caffeine intake.
Very true.
Good. I'm going to take a completely different approach to this. So to me, this is a mental thing more than it is a consumption thing. So I just wrote down that for me, the number one buffer in the world, the number one addiction in the world, the number one distraction in the world is food. Like we really, it's our easiest way to not feel our feelings. So I think the first step is just to become aware. Like truly just find some awareness around what you're doing and pay attention. Because I think if you do that, you'll start to formulate your own journey towards food. Um, there's a care and a self-love piece in there. Like you really got to think, like, would you feed your child that? Would you feed your dog that? Would you, like, so think about that. And then the last piece for me is just to explore. Like, I'm not going to give you any advice here because people are vegan and they're crushing it. People are doing straight, meat diet and they're crushing it. There's so many things, and I think that I'm all about saying what works for you because I'm over people saying this is the way to go, and it's like every human body is different. So I think that's great. And then something I am a big fan of though is we have a lot of options. Like I usually live in Colombia, and You can't get a methylation test out there, right? You can get stem cells, which is awesome. But my point is, there's so much available to you now where you can see where you're deficient, what you need, what's going on. And I think that you should just, if you, especially if your insurance pays for it, but if you can afford it, go explore your body, find out what you're allergic to. Just take the time to put some care, awareness, and effort into this, because our bodies are these amazing creation machines and they are holistic. But I would say, everything is consumption. What am I eating? Okay, what am I allowing into my life from a spiritual perspective? What kinds of vibrations? And we can actually get a blueprint and a DNA of what's going on in our bodies now, which is just, it just wasn't available before. So that's a big thing I would do.
Wow, amazing tips. Totally agree. Hydration is huge. That changed my life too. I actually put electrolytes in all of my water. So it has extra vitamins, even biotin. Same thing, cutting down caffeine definitely changed my life too. I only drink matcha now and only kind of before 12. And some other tips that I do. So between all the supplements I started taking, what I found to be most efficient is collagen. So always adding collagen to any teas that I make, because that's going to start building up your cells, your muscles, your internal lining of your gut. It'll also help you look younger. And so that's a good one. And I think a green powder, having a really potent green powder. I personally like the brand Green Vibrance. So when I was going through my health issues, having arthritis, fibromyalgia, Sjogren's, when I sought out a natural healer, she was explaining that to me, that now even if you eat whole food today, it is so stripped of nutrients because, yeah, it's being produced now, it's genetically modified, that you can actually almost not get enough nutrition. And the food that is the most nutritious are the things that grow from the ground. So herbs. So herbs have the highest concentration of minerals, but we're not eating that many herbs. And so she was explaining we actually have to like drown ourselves basically in minerals and vitamins. So, take those like green powders, take extra, even electrolyte stuff. They say, oh, just drink one or two a day, but I put in all my water. And I've never had a problem. My blood tests are amazing. So, I think you kind of can't overdo it because your body is going to excrete what it doesn't need. So if you took too much B vitamin, your body will just flush it out anyways. So it's better to overcompensate and just take as many minerals as you can. Yeah, amazing tips. Thank you. And another point I want to touch on, because we did body, soul. The mind is so powerful, especially in entrepreneurship, because it's such a roller coaster and you have moments and chaos every single day. And when you dip in your brain and you start having negative thoughts, then you start attracting more negative things into your life. So I personally think that might be the hardest challenge as an entrepreneur, because our mind dictates so much of what we do. For me personally, now I just call it my silly mind. So as soon as I hear my mind having things, I'm like, oh, there's my silly mind, and just trying to recognize that it's not really me. Those aren't really my thoughts. I'm the observer of those thoughts. But yeah, I'd love to know if you guys have any tips about how to strengthen your mind more and, get through hard times so that you're not dipping as much.
I have a really cool exercise. I think it's from Katie Byron's or Byron Katie's work. Um, but it's called, and it got brought into coaching, but long story short, it's called thought models. And so it's, if you like draw it out, it's CTFAR, which is circumstance, thought, feeling, action, result. And so thoughts are not real. The circumstance is neutral. And so you'll have like a circumstance, which is, I didn't find any clients today. And you have two categories, and the first thought could be, I suck. I'm never going to get this business going. And that's going to produce a feeling of low vibration, right? You're not going to take any action. And the result is you're probably not going to get a client. And then you take that same circumstance, which is neutral. I did not get any clients today. We can't debate that, And then the thought is, oh, I probably need to change my sales calls, or I need to change my client acquisition method, or whatever. Then your feeling is like, how do I do that? Curiosity, I'm motivated. So now you start taking actions to figure that out. And the result is you're most likely going to be on the path to getting more clients. And I know that's a lot of deep stuff to just break down in 30 seconds, but it really helped me realize that, and you and I have talked about, Sophia, this, the neutrality of our thoughts, um, or the circumstances, I should say, and then the projection of the thought. And so you really start to realize is that when you can be the observer in your own mind, you go, these are all just things. And people say they're problems, but they're just puzzles. And there's a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, and she worked with children. And what was so beautiful is there was these one kids. Well, basically, they would just give them increasing um, puzzles to solve, and people would get to the point where they got confused and they'd throw the puzzle, get mad, and there was this small group of children that are like, how do I figure this out? And all it was just a mindset of the curiosity of trying to solve that versus getting angry that it's not possible. So all I tell my entrepreneurs is I say, you are problem solvers. That's it. And if you can have that mindset that I'm a problem solver, then anything coming your way is just a puzzle to solve. And when you have that mindset, the feelings associated with it become much higher vibration. And I think we all know when we feel good, feeling good's kind of the goal. You get more stuff done and you actually go out there and accomplish. So that's just something that I've used in the past. Not my work, but amazing stuff.
It's either Craig or yeah, there we go, Carla.
Yeah, as far as things that I do for myself, I like that idea of being curious, just being curious with the feeling that comes. Not being judgmental of it, not being dismissive of it, not being like, oh, this is an uncomfortable feeling. I don't want to feel this anymore. Because a lot of times I think that's what we try to do. And letting it just overpower you if it has to. Because that's part of the process is feeling that discomfort, feeling that goodness, whatever it is. All feelings and emotions have a lifespan of about 90 seconds. It will go away. And I like to tell clients that because I think a lot of times we get in our mind that I will always feel this way. And so whatever that is, whether like writing it out and actually like sitting with it and feeling it, or like using sometimes I ask clients like use think of like the saddest scene that you've ever watched on a show. Watch that because a lot of times people don't want to feel. And so I'm very big on just feel whatever it is. Listen to a song that really, helped strike something in you. Watch something or I don't know what it is, but just different ways to try to feel all the different feelings that are out there. And so, yeah, that's something that I like to incorporate in my practice and also in my day to day. Um, and so, yeah, that's that's
Can I
my
ask a question on that, Carla?
yeah.
This is something I've been playing with, and I love your expert opinion because you are the expert. Is I have been raised to feel all the feelings and to sit with them. But what I learned over time is that's also not healthy if you're ruminating in them. So, and I know you probably agree. So, where do you find the balance of feeling the emotion, allowing it to process through you, and then moving forward versus like, nope, I got to shut this down. I got to distract. Because at some point, you got to shut it down. You've got to move forward. And I'm curious if you could give just me, but I'm sure the whole panel some wisdom on where do you find the fine line between balancing the rumination of like, say, something as simple as a death or a breakup, not that that's simple, but they're easy to talk about and go, oh, I need to feel these feelings, but now I need to move on. What's your interplay of that dance there? I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because a good chunk of my clientele don't fall in that category and it's interesting. And so I think when I always think of it as if it's affecting your day-to-day living, like if you are unable to function, like if you're unable to get up and do the things that you need to do, that's where I would definitely add a little bit more support, more intensive support if necessary. And I don't know what that can look like depending on what resources are available. So that's something that I do kind of like to check with regards to clients. Um, and also like, I guess the acceptance that we're never going to be able to shut it off. like it'll always be in the back of our minds, or there's always going to be some little thing there that might remind us, so that might trigger us, and that's okay. Um, and we just, again, focusing on things as a one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time type of thing. Because I think when we think about the grand scheme of things, of like, I can't be like this, I need to function, like I need to be like present for this and not ruminate. It already feels very overwhelming. So I like to think of, okay, so from 1:45 to 2, I have to be present here, and I have to just be as calm and cool and collected as I can. And then after that, I'll allow myself this time. But I think everyone has different processes for this, but I definitely do think a big indicator is if it gets in the way of my day to day, then I do want to incorporate other intensive supports, whatever that looks like.
What is it they say? They say we have 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day, something like that. I don't know the exact number, and 85 to 90% of those are negative. I think those are some of the statistics I've read, more or less. So the question becomes, how do we manage that? And Sophia, I love your idea of naming those thoughts, right? That's your silly whatever it was, right? I have a name for mine. And so the question I think becomes, how do you manage that? And one of my favorite quotes of all times is from Viktor Frankl's The Man's Search for Meaning. And he says, and I might not get it exactly right, but he says something like, between the stimulus and the response, we have a space. And in that space, we have the power to choose. And in that choice is where we grow and develop. I mean, just think about that quote. I mean, that's right. I mean, how powerful is that? And so when I'm coaching my executives, obviously, they're very busy and they want tools. And so one of the tools that I have found that they tell me is most life-changing is a tool called where it's pause, notice, and choose. Pause, notice, and choose. So when you find yourself in these having these negative thoughts, the first thing is really to pause, right? Take some good deep breaths, because what that deep breath does is it takes you out of that sympathetic nervous state, that fight or flight, and it brings you back into a more parasympathetic or rest and digest. Notice what's happening, even name it, because I guarantee you'll find patterns. I ask my clients to, when you find these scenarios where, right, where you're reacting, let's write it down, because I guarantee that we'll discover some patterns. And then so you pause, you notice what's happening, give it a name. And then that allows you to tap into more here, your prefrontal cortex, and actually choose a path, most likely a more rational path. So that's how I found to be able to manage that whole mindset, that whole stress, taking us out of that. Because honestly, the world's changing more rapidly than we can adapt, just from a technological standpoint. And people are burned out. Leaders are burned out. Entrepreneurs, right? There was a study last year done by University of California, Berkeley. 75% of the entrepreneurs reported that they had experienced some form of mental health issues. It's a crazy world out there. So having some of these tools that we're sharing, I think, are ways of managing that craziness in the world.
Absolutely. I feel like, Mark, you were going to say something.
I know we're coming on time, so I don't want to, but I was just going to say, like, Craig, do you think that the key to all of that, I just wrote down and it just popped in my head, is like knowing your values and your vision very, very clearly
Yeah,
makes it easier to what you're going to choose next. It's like the
absolutely.
leader, right? Yeah.
Completely. You are so spot on. That's why very early on I talked about my journey began with clarity and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up. And key to that are my values. Using
Totally.
those, I use, and Sophia knows this because we work together. I use my values as a framework for every decision that I make.
I love that,
Yeah,
man.
Mark, you're spot
Because
on, but
it doesn't it
I
make
love it.
life easier for everyone on
Oh
this
yeah,
panel if you just know, because then you just, it's not even a question. You just pausing and think, oh, I'm not doing that. If you have to think in the moment, it's hard.
yeah, and what I find is that most people, and I'd love yours and Carla's thought on this. I find most people haven't really sat down and thought about, and even more importantly, documented their values.
I don't think they've documented anything, the type of
Yeah,
partner they want, the type of life they want, the
yeah,
values they have. Like if I could
agree.
give wisdom to anybody here, sit down and just break it all down. Because if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? You don't just get in the car and
Absolutely.
start driving around in
Yeah,
circles. So,
I love it. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Yeah. All such powerful tips. Thank you guys. I couldn't agree more. And one I'll add, because I know you guys didn't mention it, but on this panel are so many powerful coaches and therapists. So when we talk about the mind, I know for me, that was a game changer because sometimes you need someone to reflect back to you. We sometimes don't see clearly through our own mind. So one of the best ways to sort through that, yes, journaling's great, but try to go to therapy, find a great therapist, find a great coach. So I have a coach, I have a therapist, I have a spiritual coach, and it's transformed every area of my life. And it's so important to have. And I know sometimes those are costly or expensive, but you can find through foundations. Sometimes there's stuff that they offer. Carla would probably know because she's in social work. She's done social work. So you can always find that. Or even like what we were talking about early in our digital entrepreneur panel, you can still do kind of like a service swap. Like maybe you could offer, hey, would you give an hour? And if you have some kind of service to give them. So don't give up because there's always a way for you to find that help that you need. And I think that's, really important. And one tip I'll give to for getting emotions out, because it really, really helps me. Now you guys will know, maybe it sounds crazy, but you have moments that you got so frustrated, especially as an entrepreneur. And if that compounds with something in your personal life, it can be very intense. And I learned this through my own therapist too, is, you do, like you guys said, you have to get it out, but getting anger, frustration out often requires like screaming or, something a little more intense. So I personally go into my car and do it so you can, blast your music really high
I
and
love
start
it.
by either, yeah, with the songs like, but then you'll eventually start screaming. And it's amazing actually how good you'll feel so quickly just by doing that. And I'll be like, oh, and then, you can go back to your work. So just a little tip for whenever you guys are feeling overwhelmed.
Sophia, I think entrepreneurs think that they have it solved because they're their own boss, right? Many of them left a corporate kind of job to be their own boss. And what I find is that in general, entrepreneurs are so busy working in their business that they don't take time for themselves. And so I would just say for those entrepreneurs who are listening to this, you got to take time for yourself, make time for yourself. You got to prioritize you because even though you may be love what you do and you're working 50, 60, 70 hours, eventually that will catch up with you. If you're not taking care of you, the relationships around you, your community, eventually you will pay the price.
Completely. Couldn't agree more. I know we are coming up on time. I still want to open it up for anyone who is listening. If you guys do have questions, either about mind, body, spirit, or how it relates to entrepreneurship, just drop it in the chat. But otherwise, I'd love to just end with, what do you guys have as a tip for anyone who maybe wants to go into the wellness space as an entrepreneur? And I do think sometimes there's challenges going into that. It's a little alternative, but like we've mentioned, find the people who are attracted to your practice. But yeah, do you have any actual advice for anyone looking to start in your field, um, based on any challenges you guys have overcome?
I would say two things. I mean, one is kind of just an overall theme of entrepreneurship in general. We've already talked about it, but the number one thing is you just cannot do this alone. Like if you the solopreneur thing is complete and total garbage. You will break down, you will be a mess. So, you see all these coaches like you need to invest in yourself. They're not just trying to make money. I mean, some of them are, but you really need, like Sophia said, to find a coach. There's so many programs and communities now for 15 bucks, 97 bucks a month, and there's support there. But I think that in our space as a whole, the key that's going to make you stand out is really saying, this is the clarity of the niche that I really help.
Yeah.
If you really can say, I help dot 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 do dot 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 without dot dot dot. I know it's a corny little niche statement, but it's
Yeah.
really powerful because this space is flooded and overwhelmed right now. And so even a therapist, like now it's like, well, I'm a therapist, but I focus on LGBTQ plus dot dot dot. In this, it's like bam. So when I'm like, I tell people, whatever that person's Googling at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's what you want your tagline to be. That's who you want to be seen as.
Yeah.
That is, I think, because this space is so flooded right now. So that would be my wisdom.
Yeah, Mark, I think you're absolutely spot on. I would say just to reinforce that is get clear about the problem you solve, for whom, and how do you solve it.
It's funny because I taught this for years in workshops. I'm like, I'd have 150 people on this workshop. I'm like, what? Oh, what do you do? I do this, I do this, I do this. Okay. What problem do you solve? Crickets. Not one person out of 150 people could usually answer what problem they solve. And so that is such a beautiful piece of advice.
I agree. Definitely, you cannot do this on your own. Um, and also that uh, be okay with it. You are not going to be for everybody, and that is okay because you will attract who you're meant to attract.
I love that. Very true. Try
That is so
always to
important.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely love it.
I just love that because I think we think like it's like you're in the wrong room. If you're not attractive, you're just in the wrong room. And I think the young entrepreneurs take it so personally. And as I have gotten older, I'm like, oh my God, 100 people unscribed from my list. I'm like, yes, like get them off of there. They're not your people. Don't waste their time and don't waste yours. So that's awesome, Carla. Thanks.
Yeah, I will say being an entrepreneur is the hardest thing I've ever done. Working for a company is easy,
Totally.
and yet it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done from a career perspective.
I know you've heard this, Craig, but it's a personal development program disguised as a business.
Yeah. I love it. I
Awesome.
love it.
Yes.
That's great. I love that one. I wrote that one down.
It literally is. That's what it is. It's like, oh, no,
Yeah.
no, no. This isn't a business. We're going to play on every trigger, every emotion, flip you upside down, inside out, all around. And it gives me a lot of respect for people now that I used to kind of be like, oh, they're just this wealthy grifter or whatever. I'm like, what they had to grow through to get to where they're at. I mean, it's a lot. So,
And my parents and friends, they're like, "What do you do? Like you're doing what?" My mom
yeah.
says, "You're not getting paid?"
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right.
I think the only thing I could compare it to, and I don't have personal knowledge on this, is probably like children, right? Like, I mean, other than that, I just don't know if anything's harder.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, very true. Wow, thank you guys. I feel like we got so much valuable tips,
Yeah.
thank you.
insights, inspiration from you guys. Again, it's so important as an entrepreneur, anyone listening, you heard it. It's a masterclass in personal development. So mind, body, soul is going to be a huge major factor of being an entrepreneur, even though a lot of people don't think about that before going into it. So Thank you, everyone. And don't forget to reach out if you guys are looking for a therapist or a coach. We've got Carla, we have Craig and Mark, and also totally suggest joining any entrepreneurship groups. So even like Mark having a community so that you guys don't feel alone is really so important as well. So thank you to the panel and thank you
Thank
everyone
you.
on
Thank
here.
you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
You
Amazing being
love-
with you guys.
Yes, thank you for having
Yay.
us, Sophia.
Yes, thank you. Really appreciate you.
Ciao.
And for everyone listening, hello. We have another 15-minute break, and then we're going to be hopping into our content creator panel, which is amazing. We have some awesome content creators there. I know you guys want to hear that. That's right. Everything now is around content creation and social media in terms of sales, marketing, personal branding. So we'll be back in 15 minutes and we'll have our music up. So you guys are welcome to stay on or come back then. Thank you.
Awesome.